Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Core Ledger webinar. My name is Samuel Miller. I work with the marketing and sales teams here at Core Ledger, and I'll be emceeing today's event. This is the second in a new series designed to encourage real discussions about blockchain. We're focusing on realistic use cases and practical implementations, and we hope to give you the information that you need in order to know whether or not a blockchain solution might be a good fit for your project, and if so, to give you some ideas on how to get started. If you've attended past Core Ledger webinars, then today's agenda will look pretty familiar. In just a second, Core Ledger's co-founder and CEO, Hannes Schweifer, will start the presentation by discussing some of the questions that you might be having as you evaluate whether or not blockchain is a good fit for your project. Then the case for starting off your implementation slowly rather than jumping into a full build. And finally, some practical strategies for how to do so. After that, we'll have some time for discussion. So if you have any questions, comments, or discussion points, you'll see a Q&A button on the left side of your screen. If you just click on that, then you can type your questions in. And at the end, we'll do our best to answer them. So we've got quite a lot to talk about today. I'll pass the mic off to Hannes.
Thank you very much. So my name is Johannes Schweifer, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm actually a chemist, not a computer scientist. I did a lot of consulting. First, of course, not in blockchain technology. Later, I co-founded Bitcoin Swiss, and I also co-founded Core Ledger. And at Core Ledger, we realize blockchain ideas for regular business cases and not just for speculative and trading purposes. So the first question is, why should you even evaluate blockchain? There are a couple of reasons for that. One of them is that the future is digital. Of course, unless the prophecies come true and another world war will drive us back into the Stone Age, yes, let that be aside, then all businesses practically are forced to be innovative and to regularly look at new technologies. And one of these new technologies in the area of digitalization is blockchain. Unfortunately, of course, innovation means that technologies get more and more complex, and blockchain is already quite a complex technology. And blockchain know-how is kind of scarce and therefore expensive. Blockchain developers don't exactly grow on trees, so you have to look elsewhere. And it's not just personal and personal assessment of the importance of blockchain technology. There are plenty of experts in that field who advise to at least look into the technology and assess it for own use cases. A couple of advantages, of course, are like unlimited scaling, going global without increasing costs. It's possible to avoid intermediaries and therefore, for example, some listing fees on exchanges or trading platforms. And last but not least, it's the transparency and auditability of transactions, which makes blockchain extremely valuable. It can easily be compared with the internet, but internet routes data and blockchain goes a step further and routes values. And of course, there are plenty of additional advantages of blockchain technology. And frankly speaking, there are a couple of disadvantages, but these need to be carefully assessed in order to judge whether a project on blockchain makes sense or not. However, there are also plenty of opportunities and use cases. So the easiest is to digitalize assets, to create digital gold and put commodities on the blockchain. Then, of course, we had a huge crypto boom in the last years, and most of the cryptos are practically unregulated. It's possible to regulate or add regulation to otherwise unregulated crypto assets with, again, tokenization use. Of course, you can use the audit and accountability feature in order to do proof of origin, proof of provenance, and tracking of items. You can create custom marketplaces and all that, have decentralized auctions, and plenty of more things. So the big second question is, why showcase and not build right away? Well, also, I myself am one of those people who prefer to just start coding and developing things. But with complex technologies such as blockchain, it needs to carefully assess costs and benefits. Usually in every company, there is at least one person who advocates new technologies, and this normally with great passion. And innovation is driven by people. This is important, never by management. Management only approves budgets. There comes a big important analysis. Big budgets are just approved with big enterprises, and small and medium enterprises normally don't have the same budget for new projects such as trying out blockchain as big enterprises have. I witnessed it myself that banks, just shortly after blockchain technology hatched in general, the banks started their own blockchain teams and already gobbled up a lot of those scarce blockchain experts for their teams. If you have the bad budget, it's never a problem. So what are the obstacles you might run into, and what are the cost drivers with blockchain projects? One of them, of course, is the software development itself. So every line of code costs a certain amount of money, and quickly you run into the hundreds of thousands if you start something from scratch. But that's not all. There's also the point with legal and regulatory clarity. No blockchain project normally starts without a thorough analysis first and a legal opinion by expert lawyers. That costs. You have third parties, normally banks or credit card companies or other parties, which you need and mostly need to persuade to go that path with you and stay with you during a blockchain project. You need know-how, and as usual with all new technologies, you have some trial and error, and of course this comes with potential losses of money, loss of time. You need access to blockchain expertise. That's not cheap in general, and blockchain transactions also normally incur costs, transaction costs. And finally, it's all about time, because time is money. And most of the time, especially if legal and regulatory clarity is to be achieved, is spent on waiting. So what does a showcase mean? A showcase, especially a blockchain showcase, means you have a fully functional and working software prototype that uses blockchain to realize a business idea. But there's the important distinction. It runs on a non-productive chain. Drivers, why would you do that? Of course, you might be looking for investors and need something to show for pitches and presentations. You might want to model simply new products, might be of financial nature or different, and model them on blockchain. To use them, for example, for a showcase for fit gap analysis, or using the prototype for a better cost estimation. You might even want to do business with it and make a business on having those showcases. For example, as a lawyer, giving legal advisory on blockchain products and showing how a blockchain product might look like, or offering services to model a use case in real life. And last but not least, of course, there's training and education. It's much easier to teach things if the topic can be touched, can be experimented with, and thereby make their own stuff blockchain savvy. Or just get to know how tokenization works without real regulatory exposure, and thereby without the long waiting time and costs. And then schools and universities could use it in kind of a laboratory fashion. What are the alternatives? The alternatives to such a use case would be the good old PowerPoint. The disadvantage of PowerPoint is that, of course, you can't touch it. Yes, you can print it, but it's not the same. And there is no way to know if it works in reality. You can just use meetings, plenty of them, and plenty of flip charts in order to demonstrate ideas. Mostly that's a waste of time, and as we all know, cost of time is much higher than at the end a prototype. A third option, and that's not the final list, a third option is a click dummy, but it doesn't really reflect blockchain behavior. A click dummy is great for websites, but not good for blockchain experience. And you can't really test it as a real product. You can showcase an app or some isolated behavior, but never how a blockchain product would really feel and look. So how can you achieve this? There are a couple of ingredients which you need for a showcase. First of all, you want to create digital assets. It's all about digitalization, and it starts with creating them. That might be tokens, documents, some vouchers, placeholders for real assets, as we have seen. That already simulates the behavior of financial products or non-financial products, things which you want to fractionalize, or tangible, intangible assets, all that sort. After having created them, you might want to distribute them and showcase how that would work. That can be done through a web shop, an OTC platform, an exchange, something like this. And your end users might want to hold them. Not only might want, they will want to hold them. So normally you need some kind of a wallet solution. Users might want to trade them. So it needs, again, an exchange or a decentralized marketplace of that sort. And finally, and that's the most important part, you want to add some rules and business processes. For example, access and transfer rules, or to add trade restrictions, to add forms, external links, custom functions, and all that. This is what most business cases, especially those I've presented in one of the previous slides, are made of. And CoreLedger allows you to do that in a so-called active sandbox using existing products, which don't need a single line of code and can just be adapted with configuration. So for the first part, the creation of digital assets, there is a token lifecycle management tool, which is referred to as white label marketplace. This can be used for all kinds of administrative tasks, including user management, rights and role management, customization of special restrictions, and all that. There's a customizable wallet which allows to hold assets, but not only. You can use a QR code scanner to import tokens from physical wallets. You might be familiar with paper wallets. You could, for example, print vouchers, bonus points, and all that, and distribute it through various vendors and other places. You can use the wallet to import them. You can use the wallet as a point of sales device. And before all that happens, you need to distribute it through a portal. This is what has been referred to as exchange or OTC platform. And for this purpose, there is a so-called white label portal, which allows to offer assets in a web shop-like manner. And it also offers the reverse process, which is redemption of assets. Tokens are converted back into real products. If the real product is a fiat currency, so money, which it has been tokenized, then the portal allows to redeem the real money in exchange for the token. If the tokenized object has been a commodity like gold or oil or whatever it might be, the user can use the portal to redeem the real object, to get the gold in whatever form, by handing back the token. The system has a rich API, which can be used in a programmatic manner, and of course an SDK, which allows to adapt it gradually to certain use cases. That's the point where we leave the no-code adaptation, but that's mostly not necessary. For most use cases, we have shown that the tools as they are can just be configured with assets, with rules, with certain objects, and be used like this. Also for shareholder voting, the wallet the white label app is enough. So what are the advantages? The biggest advantage is the cost that is saved. There is little to no implementation and integration cost. And of course, because it's not live, it runs on a non-productive chain. There is no legal and regulatory clarification necessary. Actually, it's the other way around. There is first the sandbox application, which allows lawyers and regulatory advisors to judge whether regulatory clarity can be achieved or not, or whether a no action letter is necessary or not. And most important of all, it does not need any third parties. It needs no banking connection. It needs no account at the credit card company, credit card processing company, and so forth. A big advantage is the experience which is gained. It builds expertise in-house and allows qualified assessment whether or not the technology shall be pursued. So in short, it allows to assess whether blockchain technology is the best choice for a business, or if the traditional and existing means are fully sufficient to continue the business. So if innovation at the blockchain level is necessary or not. Thank you very much for your attention, and we are now looking forward to get some questions.
So thanks very much, Hannes. We now have some time for questions. If there's anything that you'd like to contribute, just click on the Q&A button on the left side of your screen and ask away. So first up, we have a clarification question. Why is a blockchain needed for a showcase? Wouldn't the same results be possible with a normal client-server application?
Normally, blockchains behave a little bit different than client-server systems. So blockchain, for example, has transaction times that could lie in the range between several seconds to minutes if we look at the Ethereum mainnet. And this impacts the user experience on the one hand, and it also impacts the way how data is processed. So no, you could, of course, simulate the behavior of a blockchain with a client-server system, but the price to do that is much higher than just use a blockchain that exists in order instead of mimicking it.
All right. We have another clarification question. If a successful showcase leads to a live project, wouldn't that result in the same costs and hassle that you mentioned before anyway?
Well, not exactly the same, of course, because there is a difference whether you start directly from scratch without the knowledge that you gain through a prior showcase, or if you use the experience from the showcase in order to build exactly what you want and exactly what you need. So the biggest advantage is the gained experience, which also has an impact on the cost.
Okay. Next question. On which blockchain does the showcase run?
The blockchain is a so-called proof of authority chain, which has the advantage that it incurs no transaction costs, and it's private seal. So not everybody is participating and mining, but it's public read and public transact. So everybody can submit transactions, but the verification of these transactions is restricted to a number of privileged parties, so-called authorities. The network is known as SparkNet, and it runs in Liechtenstein and Switzerland and Germany.
Okay.
I mean, just to add, it runs everywhere. Of course, it's a blockchain. It's globally available, but the authorities, they are located in Liechtenstein, Switzerland, and Germany.
Next question. So how quickly can a showcase start, and what are the costs involved?
Starting a showcase can be done pretty quickly. We're talking about days, if not hours. All it needs is to answer a couple of questions, and the costs involved are pretty low compared to the amount of, let's say, software value that is delivered. So it's in the range of 8K for 6 months, and every additional month costs 600 francs.
All right. Are there any other questions? Well, if that's all the questions, then I'd like to thank you all again for joining us. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can do so very easily through our website, and we'd love to hear from you. As always, we're on social media at LinkedIn, Twitter, Medium. You'll also find articles on the topics of blockchain and tokenization on our channels as well. We're also on YouTube, and we'll be posting a recording of this webinar there in just a few minutes. So if you need to refer back to it, then please do check out that channel. So that's all for today. Thank you again for participating, and we hope to hear from you, or at least see you at the next webinar.
Thank you. Bye.